Hi guys, hi everyone. I guess we back for the part number two. The part number two is the emergence of commodity money. What we what we're gonna talk about, if you let me share my screen. So now you can see that we're gonna talk about the different forms of commodity money used in early civilizations, such as livestock, grain, and precious metals. Okay, so what we've seen in part number one is as the Mesopotamian societies or early human civilizations grew in complexity and trade became increasingly important, the limitation of the barter system became more apparent. Merchants needed a more efficient, stable, and reliable way to exchange goods and services, and commodity money emerged as a natural solution. What we can focus on is really the early versions of civilizations on Earth. Ancient Mesopotamia, but early civilizations are typical examples where different ways or different types of commodity money were used as early, way to exchange with certain level of quality, storage capabilities, and also divisibility of, what the exchange could be. The evolution towards commodity money and its limitation as a medium of exchange could be, focused in different kind of points. First is livestock. Cattle, sheep, and goats were commonly used as a currency in early Mesopotamian societies or early civilizations. However, livestock could be difficult to store, transport, and their value could fluctuate depending on factors such as health, age, grain. Grains such as barley, wheat were another popular commodity used as money. While grain was easier to store and transport than livestock, its value could also fluctuate depending on factors such as crop yields and demand and seasons as well. Precious metals, gold and silver, were prized for their value and durability, but were used to create jewelry and other objects. These metals were also used as a form of money, but they were relatively rare and expensive, making them less accessible to the general population. So what we can say is one of the earliest forms of commodity money in Mesopotamia or early civilizations was livestock. As I said, cattle, sheep, and goats were valued for their meat, milk, and labor, and they were also used as a form of currency. Merchants could exchange livestock for other goods and services, such as grains, tools, and textiles. However, livestock could be difficult to store and to transport, and the value would fluctuate, as I was saying, depending on, health, age, and seasonality. A sick or injured animal might be worth less than a healthy one, and the value of livestock could also vary depending on the time of the year. Grain, as another popular commodity, as I was saying, used as money in early human civilizations. Barley and wheat were essential for good production, also for beer or fermented drinks, and they were also used to pay taxes and tribute to rulers. What we'll see, for example, even in the Middle Age or in the modern times in Europe, yeah, grain was extremely used as a way of taxing, individuals. Grain was also easier to store and transport than livestock, but also fluctuate depending on crop yields and demand. Precious metal, as I was saying, were also used as a form of money. They were prized, they were rare, they were also expensive, so not necessarily accessible to everyone. While commodity money provided a more efficient ways to exchange goods and services than barter, it still had several limitations. The value of these commodities could fluctuate, making it difficult to determine the fair exchange value. Additionally, commodity money was often difficult to store and transport, especially over long distances. So if you imagine long, trade kind of routes could be difficult for livestock, or even for heavier, precious metals. At the same time, it is natural to imagine that money was also used as a form of taking advantage of others, and this is part of the natural way to consider money as the root of all evil. Because the first element is, if you want to trade, you want to take advantage of the other to get a positive trade in a matter where you can take more than what the value you want to exchange, and to use finesse as a way to take advantage of others, instead of trying to find a way to have a long-term relationship with people, to have a fair trade, to have an engagement with others. That's what I was saying, that it was extremely difficult to determine the fair exchange in a value when you want to take advantage of others. You want to trade with something else, and not necessarily something that will be equivalent to a fair trade. And money was giving you access to that. So this is why even the early versions of money were an attempt to corrupt the human mind. Okay, so thank you very much for your time, and I'll see you in part number 3.